Within the walls, whispered in the shadows, and inscribed in stolen touches, were secrets. I was brought in to be a nanny for a newborn, but I couldn't help but be pulled to the father, a man struggling with his past. We were forced to choose between the love we dared to create and the expectations of society when our quiet understanding erupted into a forbidden passion. Ben, a guy of striking presence with his immaculately groomed dark beard and piercing blue eyes, negotiated the chaos of being a single father with a fatigue that sank deep in his bones. He was a man of striking presence. Silas was a newborn with incredible green eyes who was peaceful and watchful, gurgling quietly in his bed. He was a small, innocent observer in the middle of the chaos that was occurring around the adult world. In Ben's environment, Seth, with his blonde hair and soft blue eyes, came as a live-in nanny. He was a quiet presence that rapidly became vital, a steadying influence. Ben's world was becoming increasingly turbulent. There was a non-stop haze over the first few days, feedings, sleeps, and quiet conversations about Silas's development and milestones. Seth had a calm way about him that made it look effortless to have such a connection with his son, and this drew Ben's attention. Ben, who was frequently lost in thought and whose mind was replaying the good and bad happenings of his marriage that was falling apart, found himself drawn to Seth. In striking contrast to the emotional gap that his ex-wife had built, which had grown larger with each passing day, there was a calm understanding between them, a shared rhythm that alleviated the tension in the house. This was a stark contrast to the emotional distance that had been established by his ex-wife. After Silas went to bed, they spent peaceful evenings talking about life, anything but the underlying attraction that simmered between them. A nonverbal language of lingering glances and unintentional touches created tension. In the chaotic aftermath of his divorce, Ben found himself more and more attracted to Seth's kind character. His calm strength was a soothing presence. Seth's friendliness struck him as one he hadn't seen in a long time. It was real warmth radiating from him like a soft glow in the dark. Seth, for his part, was drawn to Ben's silent power. His rough demeanor concealed a compassion he respected. He felt a need to help, to provide comfort, to close the distance Ben appeared to be from the world. One evening, in the living room, the low light of the lamp throwing long shadows over the walls, Ben felt himself pulled to Seth's stare. He noticed something more intense in Seth's eyes, a warmth reflecting his own unvoiced wants. When baby Silas went to bed at night, they would talk quietly about anything but the way they felt for each other. The growing tension was generated by a nonverbal language of wistful glances and unexpected touches. Ben enjoyed Seth's soothing presence and loving nature throughout the hard times of his divorce. It had been a long time since Seth had seen someone like him, and his genuine warmth and generosity glowed through him like a gentle light in the night. Ben's modest power, which he thought emanated from the tenderness that lay beneath his hard demeanor, now intrigued Seth. In order to make Ben feel less alone in this world, a part of him wanted to reach out and comfort him. One evening, while sitting in the living room, Ben couldn't help but look into Seth's eyes because of the lengthy shadows that the warm lighting was creating on the walls. Seth's eyes glowed with a passion that matched his own unspoken desires. The tension in the air was instantaneous, and it ignited. "Seth, you've been a huge help," Ben replied in a hoarse voice. "Without you, I don't know what I would have done." Seth's cheeks became a little redder. His voice was quiet when he said, "It's nothing. I'm just carrying out my duties." Ben muttered, staring at Seth's lips, "It's more than that. You've simplified things." During the long silence, there were looks and words that were not said. When Ben reached out and touched Seth on the arm, it sent a jolt through both of them. It was hard for Seth to breathe because his heart was beating so fast. He wasn't sure what Ben wanted, so he was hesitant to lean in and close the space between them. As the days turned into weeks, their friendship got stronger. As they talked, cuddled, kissed and laughed, they took care of Silas while working together well. Seth became more and more important to Ben because he was a calming center. He wanted to be with Seth because of how strong and funny he was without being too loud. Ben said, "You're good with him," one afternoon as he observed Seth calmly calming a fussy Silas. "He's a good kid," Seth said in a sincere and loving voice. They went together to collect baby supplies, which caused some laughter and sneaky glances. The world outside their tranquil haven, however, began to grow. A friend's modest reprove and a neighbor's persistent stare hinted to their problems. Ben's friend, a loud guy called Mark, said a few offhand comments about Seth's constant presence with a little undertone of judgment. Ben's protectiveness of Seth increased as the day progressed, and he felt furious at the recommendation. One night, after a particularly difficult day, Ben was attracted to Seth's quiet resilience. He disclosed his concerns and weaknesses as well as the claimed adultery and ongoing suffering of his wife's departure. Seth heard with eyes full of understanding and a wish that mirrored Ben's. The emotional fragility produced a profound connection, a feeling of shared pain, and unspoken desire. The remaining barriers were dismantled by the shared vulnerability. Ben extended his hand, tentatively at first, then more confidently. At first, he gently caressed me, as if he were frightened of breaking me. After that, however, his hands began to examine my body with such a level of attention that I felt my breath catch in my throat. His hands had become more confident. The sensation of his breath against my skin was so warm that it literally froze me to the core. He moved his finger all over my body. Because I could feel his warm breath on my back, I was groaning for more. I had the want to be in greater proximity to him, to be entirely consumed by him as a single being. Despite the fact that my heart was racing, I was quite certain that I wanted this man more than I had ever desired anybody else in my entire life. Ben and Seth utilized their bodies in a passionate manner to make each other want more, giving in to the profound hunger that had been forming between them. This was just the beginning of their relationship. Their ragged breaths and the never-ending cries of their intimate connection were the only sounds that broke the silence for a considerable amount of time as they lay entwined in the covers. Eventually, their secret was uncovered. Startled and disapproving, Mark spoke to Ben in a judgmental and slightly treacherous manner. The intense and unpleasant encounter brought to light the demands from society, the burden of expectations, and the dread of being shunned. Ben was only thinking of his son and Seth. He didn't care about what others thought of him. The love that had grown in the hidden corners of his life all he needed. He pondered how their decisions might affect his son's future as he studied Silas and his innocent, brilliant green eyes. Ben remembered the medical emergency involving Silas, and it compelled them to face their emotions together. They realized that their love and connection were greater than any outside pressure as a result of their shared vulnerability as parents and their dread of losing Silas. They ultimately decided to choose one another. In order to start a new life together without the scrutiny of their past, they relocated to a different neighborhood. Ben, Silas and Seth demonstrated the continuing strength of human connection through a realistic depiction of love in the face of hardship. They built a life together, their love a silent protest against a sometimes incomprehensible reality. It all ends in a passionate kiss to a better future.